Hi everyone, this is Mr. Castro speaking and I'm recording this video for my English 10 Accelerated students. Right now we are working on our Things Fall Apart essay, so if you need an overview of the rough draft process or if you just need a quick reminder of how to complete some parts of the rough draft, please watch this video. So you have 3 packets for Things Fall Apart. Um, for this second packet, we have 2 articles. And each article will contain good evidence to help you write your essay. At the very end of Things Fall Apart Packet 2, you have an essay prompt. So you're going to select one of the topics up here at the very top where it says main thesis. You're going to either select the thematic concept of change and tradition or the thematic concept of masculinity and femininity. If you look at the very end of Things Fall Apart Packet number 1, you have good evidence for both of these thematic concepts already. In one sentence for your main thesis statement, this is going to be the main idea of your entire essay. You're going to explain how the author of Things Fall Apart introduces the thematic concept that you're selecting in his book, and you'll also explain how the British colonization of Nigeria impacted this specific concept for the people, for the Igbo people. If you go to Google Classroom, you'll see this main thesis sentence frame that'll be very helpful for you. You're welcome to use this. You're highly encouraged to use this as it will make your main thesis a lot easier to craft. Going back to Things Fall Apart Packet number 2, once you have written your main thesis statement, you're going to rewrite the first part of your main thesis right here on the left side where it says Y, point 1. So this is the explanation of how Chinua Achebe introduced the thematic concept in his book. And then point 2, on the right side, you're going to basically restate the second part of your main thesis statement, explaining the impact of colonialism. At the very bottom of this chart, you're going to quote one piece of evidence from the novel to support your first point that you're making in your main thesis statement. And this evidence, once again, is something that you most likely will already have at the very end of Things Fall Apart Packet number 1. But if you don't like that evidence, or if it doesn't seem to really support your main thesis statement, then just go back to the chapters that we read in class and select a different piece of evidence. On the bottom right of this chart, you're going to simply quote one piece of evidence from the article or one of the articles in this packet, and you're going to make sure that the evidence that you're quoting supports and proves your main point or point number 2 that you're making in your main thesis statement. Okay, so once you have completed this evidence chart, that's going to make your rough draft a lot easier to complete because this is basically half your essay. Once you get to Things Fall Apart Packet number 3, you're going to have a shaping form that helps you write your rough draft in order. So it's going to be a 4-paragraph explanatory or informative essay. If you look at the beginning of page 2, you see that you have the introduction paragraph right here. So the introduction paragraph needs to consist of at least 5 sentences. The main thesis statement that you write in your evidence chart will simply go right here for part B of that paragraph. So you're simply going to copy and paste that. That's going to be really easy. Right here for part A, you're going to write at least 4 sentences to introduce the topic and to start your essay. It says right here, look at pages 4 through 5 for possible openings. So if you go to pages 4 and 5 of this packet, you'll see a variety of ways to start your essay. You're welcome to pick one of them. You're welcome to pick 2 or more of them and combine them into an opening. It's up to you how you start your essay. For example, you might start by providing some background information in your own words about the topic that you're writing about, or you might provide some background information about the book. You might define what it means to have a tradition. You might define in your own words um, what it means to be masculine or what it means to be feminine. You might give a short story of either you or someone who you know who has experienced that issue. Um, or once again, you might combine two or more of these different openings into one. So once you've completed your first paragraph, your two body paragraphs will be written in the same format. They're written in what I call pie format. So you're going to start by pointing out the idea. You're going to then continue by illustrating the evidence. And illustrate, in this case, it just means to show or to demonstrate. Or in this case, you're going to quote the evidence. And then lastly, you're going to elaborate. Once again, we're going to follow this pie format for both body paragraphs. So for the first body paragraph, you're simply going to point out an idea from the novel. So if you go back to Things Fall Apart Packet 2, that's going to be on the middle left side of the chart. You're simply going to rewrite that sentence right here. If you don't like how the sentence is written here, you can always rewrite it to make it better. And then for part B, you're going to illustrate the evidence. So once again, we're going to go back to our Things Fall Apart Packet number 2. The evidence on the bottom left of the chart, where it says really, illustrate the evidence from the novel. You're going to copy and paste that quote right here for the first body paragraph, part B. But you don't want to just throw in the quote, because when you write your essay, it's going to look weird to have just a random quote in the middle of the paragraph. So you're going to introduce the quote. If you look at page 7 of this packet, you're going to see different ways to quote or different ways to cite the source for your evidence. So for the book, when quoting from a book, you're going to follow one of these three formats to quote the evidence. And then you're just going to replace the last name Fademan with Achebe, because Chinua Achebe is the author of the book that we're reading. And then, of course, you're going to replace that number 25 with the page number of wherever you got the evidence from in the book. And then going back to the body paragraph, you're going to finish up the body paragraph by adding elaboration. You need at least 4 sentences of elaboration. If you look at page 7, you have some examples of how to elaborate. So you have some sentence starters right here. You might also make some comparisons or contrasts. You might explain how that example is similar or different to other societies. You might compare it to our society. And you might explain what the author is showing through that evidence. You might explain how people generally around the world would react to that kind of evidence, etc. When you go back to the rough draft, you'll follow the same exact order for the second body paragraph, but this time you're writing your second body paragraph about the article from packet number 2. So you're going to get the reason from your evidence chart. This time it's going to be on the right side of the chart, so you'll move that over here. Then you'll get the quote from the chart, put it here. But once again, look at page 7 of this packet for how to introduce the quote. This time we're introducing a quote from an article, not a book, so it's going to be a little bit different. And then lastly, we're going to elaborate, once again, at least 4 sentences explaining the evidence. Lastly, when you get to the conclusion paragraph, you're going to write at least 4 sentences. If you look at page 6 of this packet, you have different ways or examples of different ways on how to conclude your essay. And just like with the opening, you're welcome to either stick with one of these methods, or you're welcome to combine 2 or 3 of them into one conclusion. Because we are writing an explanatory or informative essay, I don't recommend using a personal challenge at the end. You're not really trying to challenge your audience to do anything, but any of these other methods would be okay for this kind of essay. Okay, and that wraps up the rough draft. So do your best to complete your rough draft. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in class. And then after we complete the rough draft, we'll type everything up into our final draft. And speaking of the final draft, since this is a rough draft, don't worry about everything in this essay being perfect. Don't worry about the grammar too much. You'll have a chance to fix that once you type up everything into your final draft. Okay, thank you everybody. And if you have any questions, once again, feel free to ask me. Thank you.